Welcome to another episode of Legal for Tech, the podcast. So, guys, you do recognize my voice. It's always Rosie here. And as I've said many times, this is just a group of students and young professionals who are very interested in anything that has to do with technology. And yes, it's regulation. So, today I'm joined by my friend and colleague and producer of this podcast, Giacomo Di Gregorio. Hi, Giacomo. Great to see you.
Hi, Rosie. Great to see you as well.
Lovely to see you because today, actually, we are talking much more about regulation, I would say, than, of course, we're talking about technology, but we are at the core of regulation and especially at the core of the greatest regulation, which is the GDPR in a way. It's the general data protection regulation of the European Union. And we are here to talk about it with someone that is very famous on LinkedIn, but also very famous in our hearts. Welcome to this podcast, Jorge Garcia Herrero. Great to see you.
Hello. Uh, well, I am Jorge Garcia Herrero. You can call me Jorge Garcia Herrero or Giorgio or George or Jorgen or Georg or whatever
Uh,
you see fit.
J JGH is also quite nice.
Okay, you can call me.
No, I'm joking. I will call you Jorge.
I have been
Of course.
I have been called many things in my life, and I was
I'm not
very
sure
happy with it. Okay.
whether some of them must be disclosed in this podcast. Let me ask you. So, yes, I said you're very famous on LinkedIn because you have a great Substack and newsletter, which I love and follow. But maybe some of our listeners haven't come across your content yet. So maybe if you could give them a bit of a overview of your life, career mostly, and also what you've been doing these days, that'd be great.
Okay, I will spare from hearing about my life. But okay, I'm a lawyer. I'm a DPO. I live in Spain, not in Madrid, not in Barcelona, but in a little town, much quiet and happy and easy. And well, my life is writing the Substack and all my stupid and funny things I used to write in LinkedIn and not so much in Twitter these last years, but also in Blue Sky but most of all in Substack and LinkedIn. And in the very limited time that my Substack leaves me, I also work for different companies, generative AI and pharmacies, and well, quite a good mix of companies. And well, I like to read other stuff, and I like to read Rosalia also posts in LinkedIn and the comments on the very interesting papers. And well, here I am to speak with you and Giacomo.
And we will go then for with the first question for sure. That is pretty general from me because I'm not a lawyer and didn't study legal stuff, so that's why I'm asking this. Like, could you talk us a little bit about personal data? What are personal data and why are important for us?
Oh my God, that's a very general question. Okay, I will do like the people I admire doing. That is no matter the question, I will give the answer I want. And okay, why is it personal data important? Because it is because data protection is one of the most transversal disciplines, and so that and it's the base for the exercise of a lot of rights, and that's why it is important. And what is personal data? That thing is changing almost every day, and in the last few years, it has changed completely because we thought we knew what personal data was. It was like a binary thing. Something was personal data or it wasn't personal data. But since the last judgments of the European Court, we get that we have something which is data that can be personal data for me, but not for Giacomo, and could be non-personal data on Thursday, on Monday, and could become personal data on Thursday. And that's what we got here, and we have to handle.
That's absolutely brilliant. How I love the framing because I feel like with technology, it's difficult to put things in a box. Although technology is supposedly something very boxable because it's very technical. So it's this view that interpretation kind of evolves and shifts from one side to the other, whilst the technology behind it technically is, I mean, it's rather descriptive rather than interpretative in terms of value and what motivates it. It's kind of like tell us if we're talking about Aristotelian epistemology anyways. But the thing you said about the latest decision, I think it was the 4th of September that we received a very important decision from CJEU. That really made some people very angry and some people very happy and some people very confused. Where do you stand on this spectrum and why is that so?
No, that's a good question. Well, not happy or not unhappy. One thing I don't quite understand about the September timing is that the European Court had said that exact same thing for 4 times in a row before SRB scanning in September 25. So I didn't understand the surprise at all. That's the first thing. Second, confused, of course, because there were quite a few points very confusing in that judgment, because they talked about consent in a situation where nobody was talking about consent, not in the first sentence, not in the general advocate, in the AG opinion. I don't know, but about the Scania mainstream doctrine, it was said, as I said 4 times before, and well, you can get confused, you can get happy or unhappy. You have to handle it, and linking this question with the one before, no matter what the digital omnibus is going to result about the personal data definition, we already have these judgments of the European Court, and we have to live with them. So we have to get to put it to work.
Talking about digital omnibus, a lot of kind of critiques were, let's say, advocating for the fact that the digital omnibus obviously implements the decision, but like takes it out of context. Is context that vital to the understanding of SRB, or would you say actually it was the 4th or 5th decision in a row, and context doesn't matter that much because it's the jurisprudence that counts, not the context of SRB?
But I think both things are intertwined. I think context is king. In data protection, I don't think there's anything more important than context. No matter what concept you are discussing, it changes in different situations. And I am very, I have a lot of fear to make big affirmations or negations in data protection, because no matter what you say, in a few months or in a few years, you are going to face some example that is going to make you ask yourself if you know anything about data protection at all, because when you try to apply the general principles again, you discover that you were wrong partially or totally about what you thought, and that's the thing that I like the most of data protection. Then about the Scania is based on context, and you have to assess if the same piece of information is personal for you and not for me, depending on your availability to access different databases in your organization, in third organization, assess possible attacks from third parties, so it's everything about context. But if you ask a client is going to say that you say context is king instead of saying it depends, which is the favorite sentence of lawyers. But this, yes, is the essence of data protection.
So you hinted to the point in Scania, and of course we talked about SRB a tiny bit. I'm just going to ask you, in terms of clarity towards our listeners, if you could just quite quickly kind of summarize what the conclusion was between the 2 cases, and why one is a bit different from the other, if that's possible.
Between the two cases, between Scania and SRB? Oh my God. Well, uh, very shortly, Scania was talking about the VIN, the vehicle identification number, which is written in every truck. And apart from the origin case, the court said that that VIN, that identification number, is going to be personal data if the holder of the data is able to link that VIN with the owner or of the individual who drives the vehicle. It will be personal data for that organization, and if not, not. That was the main declaration. And to assess that, you have to study the content, purpose, and effects of the data processing. And in light of that, you have to assess the means which are at disposition of the data holder in terms of money, people, and time, the effort you have to make to try to identify the data subject. And if it is disproportionate, it will be not personal data for you. That is Scania, and in the SRB EDPS case, how can I make this short? Same thing, the same thing, because it was SRB and Deloitte, and the court said that Deloitte was not able to know who the data subjects were because they didn't have access to the correlation table. In one sentence, I guess that's what they said, and they said some more things about transparency, but in the thing of the personal data concept, that's the headline, I guess.
I have like maybe a slightly more kind of, I wouldn't say technical question, but like maybe looking at like emerging technologies and what's happening in the market right now. Of course, we know that, Scania and SRB are kind of, I would say, narrow in terms of the possibilities and the disproportionate effort of looking for that specific information, that matching information that you were talking about. On the other hand, we know that on the other hand of the spectrum, in a way, there's AI technology and the massive ability of making incredible numbers of inferences, some of them also wrong. Like, it's not a given thing that the AI knows that Rosalia does a podcast that's called Legal for Tech. Potentially, it's a probability that it's going to get the right thing and also a probability that it's going to get the wrong thing. Apparently, I am an artist who died in like 1952 or something. I searched on ChatGPT and I was like, you got that wrong. So, would you say that this probability idea makes it much more likely that some data that is inserted input within an AI is to be considered personal? Or would you say, like, given that it is very, very little, there is very, very little probability that the AI is going to match you with the right type of information, that makes it unlikely, therefore not personal data?
It depends. And again, it's contextual, because if you get one of the big and modern and powerful models and you put it to work, and I guess everyone has read this paper, and I guess I read it in one of your posts about these guys who put the AI to work to try and re-identify the people by pseudonym handles in social networks. And I guess, if I remember well, they achieved to identify 90% of the guys there. For one, that's not a surprise because it was able without AI. So with AI, maybe you say it's probabilistic, not deterministic. So they are going to have a lot of wrong positives or wrong negatives. Okay, but most of the time they're going to success at it. And imagine this same question when we reach the quantum computers. It's going to be wild. So yes, the assessment of the the probability or the suitability for one organization to try and identify people into one or different data sets is going to be something dynamic, ever changing, and each time easier and easier, I guess.
I guess that here there's also a question about controllership, because if, for example, you are a deployer of an AI system, say an LLM, even your organization has an LLM, a chatbot that it uses, that is like my personal data potentially asking the chatbot, can I buy a meds? So say that it's also sensitive data, because I want to make it difficult. Let's say that data is going to be personal to your organization, but it's potentially not going to be personal to the AI provider, because maybe to the AI that information is not personal, it's not identifiable, or is it? Are they joint controllers? What would you say?
Why do you say it's not personal data for the provider?
I know that there's like a kind of theory of data protection that says to the AI that's not personal data, because the AI cannot really match the two parts, so the data with the person to whom they belong, with the data subject, because for the AI it's just an inference. So it falls into a bundle and a bunch of let's say weights that do not have a bearing to the actual information. So it's not memorized, it's just inferred. Well, there's of course another theory in data protection that is like, no, the AI memorizes your data. It knows exactly who you are in its own way, but technically it comes up with solutions that lead back to you. So I would like to kind of link this view back to SRB and say, is there really personal data when we just look at the AI model, for example, or are we talking about a kind of connection, a matching that can only happen at the organizational level, so at the deployer's level?
Okay, now I get you. But again, it depends, because you get an AI model, and when you dig into AI models and you compare different ones and you try and understand how they are trained and everything, you realize that it depends 100% on what is the purpose, or why, meaning what do you train that model for. You can put the exact same training data set to train different models with different purposes, and in the training phase, you can avoid certain risks, or you can make certain risks bigger. But it's not only in the training phase, but you can get two very different animals working later. And I don't like, again, it's the same thing I said earlier. I don't like these general affirmations that AI models don't have the personal data. They don't know, they can't link people with information, because some can or some can't, depending on how you are trained, or what you have trained them, okay? And after that, you can have very different animals, and what I guess they are making, the big tech is making, is working very hard on filters on your questions, on your prompts, so that any certain prompts don't reach the model, or certain outputs don't reach you after I mean, you make the wrong prompt, or the prompt they know their model don't have to listen to answer, so they filter in the connection between you and the model, or in the output level, whenever the answer comes from the model before it reaches you. That's what the big model providers of generative AI in images do with with porno images and things like that. Sometimes the model is perfectly capable of generating almost everything, but they work at the level of filters. So I guess that this is completely relative. I mean, there are models who can perfectly pair you with your information or not, but I don't like the idea to reach a general affirmation which is applicable to every AI model. I don't think that things work like that.
I mean, I guess that's the issue with legislation in a way, because legislation needs to be general enough to apply to different cases and at least to a category of technology. And then we have the issue that every technology can be made and can be easily actually suited to different situations, because we're not talking about making a different car, because in a car you have to work with physics, basically. You have to make sure that the pieces kind of hang in there together. But when we talk about technology, I mean, this is mathematical functions. And this is like filters that can, I'm not saying cheaply, but definitely in a cheaper way than in cars, be installed upon technology and upon specific models, and can be made into a system that takes into account different things. So my question, I guess, will be leading into asking, does it make sense, considering the kind of flexible nature of data protection, does it make sense to even have a data protection regulation that's so general and so broad? Or should we have like little kind of principles and then let the court apply them?
Boof. I think that's a question too big for me, too big for my bald head. Some people I respect for their opinions say that in this general terms, and also in the individual terms of Scania, we need different solutions for different contexts. Again, context is king. And I don't know about that, because if you wait for the current resolutions to come, it takes 5-6 years at least in the GDPR context, which is, I guess, very long time. And we need I guess that what we need is to be fair, applying the general principles that we need, and that's a responsibility for everybody, not only for the judges, not only for the lawyers, but also for the engineers and the companies that are making things every day. And normally these terms about what is good or what is bad for business and for the European companies to compete is, I guess, very biased. And to get again to the digital omnibus, I guess that the solution they have proposed is very sneaky, because I guess they have used the anchor bias. I don't know if you say anchor or ancho, the anchor bias, because they proposed a really nasty proposal a lot of months ago, and now they are putting things okay. I guess we need some changes in the GDPR, and some could be useful, but the point from where all it started was so bad that I am much against the whole thing. And step by step, we are reaching some reasonable terms. But my biggest fear is that in the name of the competitiveness and the European sovereignty and these big words, we are going to reach very lesser protective principles in the GDPR. I guess not. I expect not, but I think that's the way we are going.
Yeah, like I agree with you, like on the I guess not, because I mean we're still seeing the CJEU making very important decisions and kind of reinstating the importance of the fundamental right to privacy, the fundamental right to data protection, and all the fundamental rights linked to it. And I'm just thinking of the Rust Media case in general. It's that kind of assertion that if your data, if your privacy, if your data if your right to life, really, because I mean sexual information, I mean it's quite delicate as a topic. is being in danger, it doesn't matter where the Commission is drifting towards, let's say so. What matters is your rights as a European citizen. So I think you have a point there in saying, like, I hope not, and I think not, because there's still a system in place, there's still a balance, there's still national courts, there's still national legislations, there's still a whole ecosystem of rights that will not fall before potentially a different kind of wording in a legislation, but still, it's something that one needs to be considerate about. Would you say that digital omnibus, however, definitely helps SMEs? Or would you say that in that case, yeah, we're risking the rights to be kind of undermined, plus SMEs are not that well helped?
I guess that the problem with the digital omnibus and applying the Scania doctrine on digital omnibus, if we see the project from the content, purpose, and effects, mainly the purpose, the main thing is that it's very yield projected, because they have said a lot of times that it's to help the small companies, to help the European companies, to, well, that kind of things. And when you know the laws, the articles that are being touched and reformed, and you see the project, the wording they are presenting, that purpose is not fulfilled at all with that project. And that's, I mean, that's in your face for anybody who knows anything about the GDPR. And a lot of people can be happy, and that's okay. But the question is, when you are making a new law, and there's a lot of guidelines with your partner, or your I mean, your not your partner, but Giovanni Buttarelli, the father Smurf of data protection in Europe, when this necessity toolkit to assess the new laws and the new normative in Europe, that's not the way this must work. This is broken from the beginning, and that's what I think about the digital omnibus. So yeah, and it's a bit tiring to follow all the amendments and the trilogues and everything. I'm just waiting for the end to come and to see what the new rules are. And okay, but please don't come to me saying that this for the small startups and everything, because I cannot buy that. It's terrible.
And I'm coming back with after listening to
Giacomo.
yeah, there's still me. I was listening to these beautiful discussions that you had, and I'm back with one general question because I'm the man of the general questions before ending this episode. I wanted to know from your point of view, what are you most looking forward when it comes to the future of data protection in the next years?
I don't know. I really don't have the secret of happiness is in low expectations, and I have all the lowest expectations, as all the things are the changes are very disruptive and very quickly, very quick, and I really don't know what is going to happen with us lawyers or with you, expert in politics. I guess you are better positioned that Rosalia and me as lawyers, yes, because when you see what Claude is capable of, you ask yourself, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to feed my kids, but yes, I have very low expectation. I am a very pessimist person with this, but that's a reason to fight and to do things as the better we can each day.
I think that's a very lawyer answer. I'm very pessimistic about this.
No,
Perfect.
are you optimist? I am not. I am not, and all the changes point at the same direction, which I don't like. But well, we will live with that, because there will be a lot of gray areas to say it depends or context is king, to have fees for it.
That's amazing. And that should be a greater incentive for our listeners, in case you don't already, to absolutely follow and subscribe and read the Zero Party Data, which is the great Substack newsletter that Jorge writes and that I take a lot of information from, especially great memes. I have to say, I don't know how you do them, but like, honestly, I still have some of them in my mind, like forever, literally like stuck there. But I also want to say that the Substack is available, if I'm not mistaken, both in Spanish and in English. So that's
right.
also very helpful for anyone who knows both languages. You can also make comparisons.
Please
I'm not.
no,
I'm
please
joking.
no.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. And also, before we let you go, Jorge, aside from the great Substack that I'm talking about, is there anything else you would like to suggest our listeners to maybe read, do, listen, watch? Who knows?
Wow. Well, I can recommend the two books I have enjoyed better in the last months was The Empire of AI, which I guess everybody has already read, or Reshuffle. Reshuffle, I can tell you the author. It's about the changes of AI, not about the words of particular people, but in terms of systems. It's really, really, really great and really enlightening. If you want, I can send you an email with the complete details if you want to post it. And I really like that. I said that I'm very pessimistic and everything is going to be down, and you said that is the Substack you have to read in Spanish and in English. This pessimistic, trying to suicide and writing things for everybody.
No, absolutely not. Actually, the reason why I linked back to the Substack is because you said something important, which is understanding why we can say it depends and context is king. Because I feel like lawyers get a lot of hatred when the answer is, well, it depends. And you already see the clients there thinking, please do not give me one yes and one no. But I think that your Substack really helps understanding why lawyers tend to reply, it depends, and why that depending is important. Because I feel like if you come from another industry, and me too, like I'm still into the business of understanding how law is made and how law is agreed and defended. I would say it's important to see the experience of someone like you to understand, like really why we say it depends, like the back thought and the back process, and the Substack is very good for understanding the process of thoughts that lead you to it depends. I would say.
One little advice for the lawyers who hear that, in case they don't already know, is that you should say as few times as possible. It depends, because those who say at few, I mean, where I cannot say that. If you say it depends a lot, you are not going to be partner. And if you say it depends a lot, you're going to be a plain lawyer all the time. I don't know what PETA will think about this, but it's really difficult sometimes. And the more you know, the more difficult you see everything. So it's like that.
Peter is a very opinionated lawyer, and that I
Yeah,
think he will agree
that's
when he will listen to this podcast and then tell me off for saying that. Right.
Don't say that. Don't say that, Rosalia. Don't say that. You have clear ideas. You have solutions for everything. Don't say it depends. I don't know. I have to check it out. No, don't say that.
The fact that I basically go along my life asking questions will tell you that I do not have clear ideas by definition.
No, you're
Well,
fine.
thank you so much for joining us on this podcast
Okay.
today, Jorge. It
Thank
was a
you.
great pleasure to meet you in person. Well, at distance. And we really hope that you will keep on listening to Legal for Tech, as we will keep on reading Zero Party Data.
Of course, of course.
Thank you so much. Also, Giacomo, who joined me and helped me and will be finding a solution for getting this podcast together. Thank you for producing this.
Thank you, Rosalia, for leading this.
Thank you. And this was all from the Legal for Tech, the podcast.
This episode was brought to you in partnership with DG Beetle. DG Beetle helps privacy professionals to stay up to date with the most important European documents in the AI, data and digital space every day. Curious to know more? Check out the link in our show notes.